Welcome to Business Undercurrent's deep dive into Davos 2026, where the theme this year is A Spirit of Dialogue in a Contested World. That title perfectly captures the central paradox we're facing today. The world's elite are gathering to talk, but they are doing so at a moment of unprecedented global friction. We're not just dealing with economic headwinds, we're navigating a new age of competition, where geopolitics and risk are fundamentally reshaping the business landscape. In the next few minutes, we'll break down the key takeaways from the forum, examining why the traditional engines of growth are sputtering, and how geopolitical rivalry is forcing a reorganization of the global economy. This year's meeting in the Swiss Alps saw record participation, with over 3,000 leaders and more than 65 heads of state in attendance. This incredible turnout signals a shared sense of urgency. When the world's top leaders show up in such force, you know the stakes are incredibly high. But here is the critical point. The theme of dialogue masks a much deeper reality of unprecedented tension. These leaders arrived with fundamentally divergent worldviews on everything from trade and sovereignty to global security. So the real question wasn't whether they would talk, but whether they could find any common ground at all when their core interests seem so opposed. This tension is directly reflected in the latest assessment of global threats. Emerging from this environment of strained dialogue, the Global Risks Report for 2026 reads like a global warning document. For the first time, geoeconomic confrontation is ranked as the #1 risk facing the world. This isn't just about tariffs anymore. It's about the fundamental restructuring of the global economy through strategic tools like sanctions and technological decoupling. Coming in at number 2 is interstate conflict, which reflects geopolitical tensions at historic highs, with flashpoints like Ukraine and Taiwan dominating the security agenda. And the third major risk is extreme weather, a systemic shock that intersects with and worsens both economic and security concerns. It's crucial to understand that these risks are not isolated. They form a complex web where economic tensions fuel conflict and climate shocks destabilize entire regions. This dangerous environment provides the economic backdrop for the entire conversation at Davos. Global growth is projected at a sluggish 3.1%, which is well below the historical averages needed to address pressing global needs. But the truly alarming figure on this slide is the 0.9% expansion in global trade. Think of trade as the traditional engine of the global economy. When it sputters like this, it's a clear sign that companies are hunkering down instead of investing and expanding. This slowdown reflects rising protectionism and deep policy uncertainty, forcing leaders to confront an uncomfortable reality. The old playbook for creating prosperity is no longer working. At the heart of these tensions, the U.S.-China relationship remains the central axis around which the global economy now rotates. While China arrived at Davos emphasizing its role as the world's market, this message clashes with escalating U.S. tariff threats and restrictions on technology. This competition has evolved into a strategic race for dominance across critical technologies like AI, semiconductors, and quantum computing. The result is a technology decoupling that is fundamentally reshaping global supply chains as companies are increasingly forced to choose sides. This puts other global powers, especially in Europe, in a difficult position, caught in the middle and anxious about their own competitiveness amid pressure to align with one bloc or the other. The conversation around artificial intelligence has also taken a sharp turn, shifting from last year's hype to this year's hard reality of return on investment. The most sobering statistic to come out of the forum is that 56% of leaders report getting nothing from their current AI adoption efforts. This stunning figure signals that the age of scattered, bottom-up experimentation is officially over. As Siemens chairman Jim Hagemann-Snabe put it, success now requires a strategic, top-down approach, where CEOs must be dictators in identifying where AI will be deployed for maximum impact. In fact, companies that treat AI as a core business transformation are seeing up to 8 times better returns. This push for rapid deployment also brings an urgent need for responsible governance, which is no longer just an ethical concern, but a prerequisite for scaling sustainably. With traditional growth engines stalling, a new conversation has emerged around what will fuel long-term prosperity. The first key concept is patient capital, which describes a strategic shift away from chasing short-term quarterly returns to prioritizing long-term value creation. This is the kind of investment essential for funding massive, long-horizon projects like the energy transition and new digital infrastructure. At the same time, the idea of brain capital is gaining traction. The counterintuitive insight here is that as AI automates routine tasks, human capital, our collective education, skills, and health, becomes more valuable, not less. The great challenge, or the growth puzzle, is how to coordinate these long-term investments on a global scale, while managing the immediate geopolitical risks we've just discussed. This brings us to the dialogue imperative, which suggests that the very theme of Davos is a radical proposition in today's world. When norms are contested and trust is eroding, the simple act of talking becomes a necessary form of pragmatism, not idealism. The reality is that no single nation or company can solve the biggest challenges we face, whether it's climate change, AI governance, or pandemic preparedness. This forces a search for new models of cooperation that can function despite fundamental disagreements. The real work is happening in finding practical pathways forward on specific, solvable problems, focusing on shared goals like resilience and competitiveness. The goal is not total consensus, but finding just enough common ground to move the needle on the critical issues that affect us all. So, what are the key takeaways from Davos 2026? First, geopolitical tensions are now fundamentally reshaping global economics, forcing a painful but necessary restructuring of supply chains. Second, AI has shifted from hype to a hard-nosed reality, where success demands strategic, CEO-led transformation that delivers measurable returns. Third, with global trade stalling, new models for growth are emerging, focused on patient capital and brain capital as the drivers of long-term resilience. Finally, the dialogue at Davos wasn't about achieving perfect harmony. It was a pragmatic recognition that even in a deeply contested world, we must find practical ways to cooperate on shared challenges, because our collective future depends on it.